Liz Cheney is the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney. She is a former State Department official in her own right, and she is the white whale of the booking department on the Rachel Maddow Show. She just absolutely will not even entertain the idea of coming on the show, even though we ask her all the time, and she does a lot of other TV. Still, though, we live in hope, and in that spirit, I want to tell you what she's doing now. This is the latest Be Afraid salvo from Liz Cheney's group, Keep America Scared. I mean, Keep America Safe.
The pendulum is starting to swing. An America run by progressives is really, it's about to happen. We're going to be looking for people who share our values.
So who did President Obama's Attorney General Eric Holder hire? 9 lawyers who represented or advocated for terrorist detainees. Who are these government officials? Eric Holder will only name 2. Why the secrecy behind the other 7? Whose values do they share? Tell Eric Holder, Americans have a right to know the identity of the Al-Qaeda 7.
Scary, right? Lawyers who represent Guantanamo prisoners are essentially terrorists themselves. They're terrorist sympathizers, at least. Well, thanks to intrepid reporting by the Fox News Channel, naturally, we now know the identities of the Al-Qaeda 7. They're all lawyers who now work for the government. But at some point in the past, they played a role as advocates or attorneys for people who were imprisoned, with or without trial, by the Bush administration. The idea is that these newly outed 7 lawyers, in addition to 2 who did this kind of work that we already knew about, they're like a sleeper cell inside the Justice Department. I mean, they defended people suspected of terrorism, so they're sort of suspected of terrorism too, right? They defended people accused of terrorism, so that means they were defending terrorism, sort of. And it turns out that this is way bigger than just 9 Justice Department attorneys whom Liz Cheney has ferreted out as Al-Qaeda simps. Turns out, 34 of the 50 largest law firms, 34 of the 50 largest law firms in America have done work on behalf of Guantanamo prisoners. 34 of the 50 biggest law firms in America. They're Al-Qaeda. The Al-Qaeda 34. Even the law firm of Bracewell Giuliani. Yes, that Giuliani is in on this. A senior counsel for Bracewell Giuliani, Carol Elder Bruce, working right now on 2 habeas cases for terrorism detainees. Rudy Giuliani's law firm. Nice, right? Terrorist sympathizers. They're Al-Qaeda. Osama bin Giuliani. And a TRMS investigation can reveal tonight that this shadowy conspiracy goes much deeper. We can confirm that members of the military's Judge Advocate General Corps have also defended Guantanamo prisoners. Yeah, it's true. People like Lieutenant Colonel David Fracht, who talked about it in uniform right here on this program. We had an Al-Qaeda member on our show. And the military turns out full of the Al-Qaeda. You know who else is a JAG in the military? Republican Senator Lindsey Bin Graham of South Carolina. He's a JAG. JAGs have defended prisoners at Guantanamo. Lindsey Graham is Al-Qaeda. And as we follow the Al-Qaeda 9's trail, we uncover even more frightening evidence of a vast conspiracy. One of them, Neil Katyal, right now the principal deputy solicitor general in the Obama administration, back in 2006, he won a big ruling in the case of Salim Hamdan, Osama bin Laden's former driver. Who sided with him? Who did he win that ruling from? The Supreme Court! Deeper. Katyal also co-wrote an op-ed with Jack Goldsmith, an assistant attorney general during the Bush administration, arguing for a national security court to try terrorists. Al-Qaeda, Jack Goldsmith, he was in the Bush administration's Justice Department, and now we find out he's Al-Qaeda. Now it gets really scary. Neil Katyal also co-wrote an article defending attorneys who take up the cases of Guantanamo prisoners from political attacks. Defending these people. His co-author? I want you to prepare yourself. I'm not kidding here. His co-author was Ted Olson. Oh, yes. The man who got the Supreme Court to give the White House to President Bush and Vice President Cheney. Supreme Court again. Whose values do they share? Are they the real Al-Qaeda 9, Clarence bin Thomas? Hang on a second here. Think about all of this. Jack Goldsmith, Bush Justice Department. Ted Olson, Bush's Solicitor General. The Supreme Court. Do you see where this trail is leading? How can we avoid the conclusion that President Bush was in on this too? He hired and knowingly employed all these Al-Qaeda guys. He was commander-in-chief when all those Al-Qaeda military lawyers were defending all those Guantanamo prisoners. Terrorist sympathizers all serving under George W. Bush. How can we avoid the obvious conclusion that George W. Bush is Al-Qaeda? And if George W. Bush is Al-Qaeda, he allowed to become the most powerful vice president in history, Dick Cheney. What, Dick Cheney wasn't in on it? He must have been. He was there. And if Dick Cheney is Al-Qaeda, then, oh man, Liz Cheney, it all comes full circle. You see, she's picked the perfect cover. Who would suspect the person calling out the Al-Qaeda 7 was herself Al-Qaeda? It's the perfect disguise. This is perfect. It was perfect. It was, thank God we figured it out. They are all in on it. They are all Al-Qaeda. And if Liz Cheney is part of this, then, oh God, no! Oh man, I'm Al-Qaeda too. Oh my God, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Rachel Ben Maddow, let's go. Come on, here we go. We're going.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. Come on.